Hello and welcome back to Without Warning. My name's Alex Wathy with Alex Antoniadis and Ryan McMahon. We've been on quite the hiatus. Haven't recorded, I don't even know, in like a month and a half, maybe even 2 months.
I think it was when the Leafs lost game 3 to Florida. I
Yeah,
think that was the last time we
we needed
recorded.
a breather, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, we
You
were all
know,
very depressed for a very long time after that.
yes. In reality, we all just got busy because that's what happens in the summer months. And
Yeah.
the only thing happening is baseball right now. And
Mhm.
it's like the weird part of the baseball season where it's more just a drag, kind of, at least how I perceive it.
It's the dog days, but
Yeah.
approaching the trade deadline, there is
Mhm.
some exciting stuff happening.
Yes.
But yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So, there is some stuff to talk about, starting with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So
Yeah.
the Toronto Maple Leafs, they have a their arbitration hearing with Elias Samsonov happened. We don't know the total number yet. By the time this comes out, odds are the number will be out. So I don't want to focus on the number. I more want to talk about the fact that they actually went to arbitration. That's kind of shocking, especially, it's been a while since the Toronto Maple Leafs took anybody to arbitration. And then the fact that it's their starting goaltender,
Oh, yeah.
it's ballsy. But the thing with arbitration is you're basically just explaining why this player does not deserve to get paid, and the player is just being like, "Hey, I'm actually good."
Yeah,
Um,
pretty much. We want you on the team, but you kind of suck.
Yeah, we want you
yeah,
on the team, but here are all the reasons you suck, like as a person.
Yeah. This is why you shouldn't be paid a good amount.
Exactly. Yeah,
and
it's quite it is very surprising. Like
yeah,
I feel like teams are very aware of the fact of how damaging that process can be. Like I know this isn't hockey, but like the Blue Jays avoided arbitration with Bo Bichette, particularly, especially for that reason. They were
mhm.
like, we don't want to damage our relationship with this player who is a superstar and is like a huge part of our team. We'll figure it out. We'll sign the contract. And I think that's what they should have done. And when I look at the numbers that they talked about with Samson, I believe it was like the Leafs offered 2.4
And then
and Samsonov wanted
Samsonov.
4.9.
Mhm.
2.4 is insulting, I think, for a guy.
-5 mil though is very high
Oh,
for what he's
4.9,
shown.
don't get me wrong, 4.9 is also way too high. And in reality, they're just going to end up somewhere in the middle,
Yeah, my guess is 3.5
which
to
I'm fine with.
3.7.
Which
Yeah.
I'm fine with, to be honest. For a guy like, I mean, he was good last year.
Mhm.
And he's probably going to be, it's going to be a 1A, 1B situation again. So I just hope that Samsonov isn't too discouraged after the arbitration process because we all know how these things can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We're speaking like, yeah, we've been through arbitration before. I've had my coach tell me that I suck and still play for the team.
Like Jeff O'Neill tweeted, I think today, like he's like every time he's walked away from an arbitration hearing, he's thought to himself, I never want to play for that team ever again.
mhm.
So, you know,
It's risky. My guess is that the Toronto Maple Leafs are pretty sold on Joseph Wool.
it's
Um,
hard not to be.
in the
Mhm.
sense that I my guess would be it would be like 3.5 by 2.
Mm.
And then by that point, I guess the Leafs would maybe be hoping that Joseph Wool is ready to take over, because I can't imagine going to arbitration with Samsonov and then having to negotiate a deal once he's UFA. Or is he UFA or IFA? Regardless, you either have another arbitration period or he'll be UFA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to believe that they'll want to go through this cat and mouse process once more, assuming that Joseph Wool is even showing a 1B level of readiness.
Yeah. It's nice to actually have a goalie in the system who
Mm-hmm.
looks like he could be a part of the future. Like, I don't think we've had that since, I don't know, like James Reimer, Garrett
Mm-hmm.
Sparks, but that didn't last very long.
Garrett
No,
Sparks.
Yeah.
no. But, taken away from that is just get more. Just get more. Just it's not bad having at least one. I don't. I like the idea of drafting a goalie a draft if you have the draft picks to warrant it. The Leafs really haven't,
Yeah.
so they have to be really selective with their 4 picks that they have a year.
Mhm.
If the Leafs, ever end up in a situation where they have 5 to 6 draft picks in a draft, which will be a rarity in the coming years, one would expect. It'd be nice to see them just take a shot at a goalie in the 5th or 6th round, because that's usually where you can find a decent backup anyways. I mean, your more bona fide goalies are going to go in the 2-3 rounds 2 or 3, but it's such a crapshoot when it comes to drafting goalies anyways.
Yeah, there was like that small period of time where they had Wall and Ian Scott, which is a name maybe some people don't remember, but and he was like really, people were excited about him when they got him, but then he had a ton of injuries and he ended up having to retire from the sport. So yeah, that was obviously really unfortunate, but yeah, hopefully this Samsonov thing works out. Samsonov Woll tandem next year. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that's what's different about hockey though, you know? Because it's full contact and you basically you're on skates and like you can get hit, fall down on the ice. It's not like you're falling down on a pillow, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to be extra careful.
Yeah. And speaking of careful, what are the Maple Leafs going to be doing with William Nylander coming up? You know, William Nylander, the negotiations seem to be tense. Nylander's wanting about 10 plus million. The Leafs are wanting, I want to say, in the 8 to 8.5 range, is what I believe the last report was. And, you know, the cap's supposed to jump next year. I've gone on record in saying that I think that Nylander is worth in the 10 million range, not in the current cap structure, right? Under the current cap structure, he's not. He's at about like a $9.5 million AAV comparing to like what he's actually produced in my eyes and playoff consistency and all that.
Yeah.
But once the cap jumps, um, let's say even if it jumps only 4 million next year and it continues to jump, or at the point it's up, let's say 100 million cap per year in 7 years, 6 years, like Nylander's a 10 plus million player. The only worry is that the cap either A doesn't jump as expected, or B it just hamstrings you so much to the point where you can't make any other moves. Which, if you want to keep Nylander, that's what you're gonna have to do.
You know, that's the thing. After they lost in the playoffs, like all those conversations started again, like they do every year about trading one of the core four. And the thing about signing Nylander to 10 million, especially when like again, Matthews is up too, and that contract is going to be even bigger, and it looks like it is going to happen.
Yeah,
it's
Matthews.
it's just a matter of when. Like the Leafs have hamstrung themselves for so long already. And I love Nylander. I obviously Marner, Matthews, Tavares, all those guys. But I don't know. These negotiations do make you ask the question, like at what point, like if they can get Nylander for under 10, like 9.5.
If I had to put
That'd be
on
perfect.
if I had to put on my speculating cap, if Matthews doesn't take over 14 million, Nylander will be willing to go down to 9.5. Elliot Friedman went on NHL Network the other week, basically saying this is I'm not saying word for word, but in a sense being like Nylander doesn't want to take less if no one else is, and
Yeah,
Fair
you
enough.
know what?
Fair.
From his
Fair enough.
perspective, I don't blame him.
You know, he's making 6.9 now. He's deserved the jump. Look, let's say that they do trade him. A team like the Predators, a team like who's another like decent team that has a lot of cap. I know the Predators have a lot of cap. The Predators would pay him 10 million in a heartbeat, right? Like you don't go from wanting DeBrincat to not wanting anybody. So the Leafs, you know, they really just got to make sure that Matthews takes a little less. I don't know how the Marner negotiations are going to go. That's going to be weird because the cap's going to jump and then Marner's going to be up. So I could weirdly see Marner getting more than Matthews. I could see it.
That's so interesting.
Because like that's not something I've seen come up where it's Marner will likely be within I'd say a million of Matthews once the new cap the cap jump happens to potentially more, and then for Nylander, if I had to make a guess, my guess is Nylander comes in at about like 9.5 by 7.
That would be wonderful.
I could see that, and then Matthews, he's probably gonna take a 3-year deal at like 13.4 million. And then if you do that, I mean, sure, if the cap jumps 4 million next offseason, that just completely wipes out the cap jump. But then when the cap jumps again the following season, expectedly, hopefully another 2, 3, 4 million, because it's supposed to go up exponentially over the couple next years. then you're sitting pretty. Then you can kind of regroup. I think this, assuming that Nylander stays on the team, I could see this year probably second round exit, third round exit. I don't think the Leafs are cup caliber this year. But the following season, if they maintain status quo and then they get their own internal cap boost when the cap jump happens, but they signed their guys for a relatively nice deal, I could see them making waves in the 2024-2025 season. Which I know it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's 2 years out, but I mean, only one team wins the cup every year, and I don't know about you, but I'm not too confident in the Leafs' chances this upcoming year.
Yeah. It it's funny. I've said this to a few people. I'm like, just watch and like remember me saying this. The Leafs are about to ice probably the worst team on paper of the Matthews era, and they're going to go to the conference final. Just watch. And Guy Boucher is the assistant coach. He's gone on deep runs. Like this sport, I am way past the point of thinking this sport makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you see teams like Montreal a few years ago go to the final, Florida this year going to the final.
Well,
It's hard to think about this sport rationally in that way, but yeah, it is hard to see the Leafs really making much noise this upcoming season. At this point, if we're being realistic, they'll make the playoffs.
Yeah,
almost certainly. But
the thing with the NHL is the margin for error or the margin between teams is so small, like 1 through 15, that really, like, anytime somebody makes a prediction, unless you're taking like a bottom of the barrel team and being like they're going to make the playoffs and try to be super bold, you're really just guessing. That's all a prediction is. And
yeah,
I could think of any team. I could think of probably 5 or 6 teams where I could think of no reason why they can't win the cup this upcoming year.
This is the worst sport to gamble on, I feel like.
No. For the cup this year, I'd say New Jersey, Carolina. I like the Rangers still in the West. You have to assume that the Stanley Cup champions have a chance at repeating, so Vegas is in there. I like Edmonton. I like their additions. Stu Skinner with another year under his belt to get a little more consistent.
Yeah.
And then I also like Colorado. I like their additions. Ross Colton, Miles Wood, kind of just like getting back together. I don't know if Landeskog is going to be ready for start of the season. I think he might miss the entirety of the season. I
believe he is going to miss the entire season.
So that hurts.
What I've heard, yeah,
that hurts. Yeah, there's another West. I like Dallas. Another year of Jason Robertson, Miro Heiskanen starting to get into his prime.
Right. I mean, yeah, I could see any of those teams. Any of those teams could do well.
LA,
but yeah, it's hard at this point to say. In the middle of July, Yeah,
and it's gonna be exciting this upcoming year. I think that there's only so many teams you can immediately just be like, no, they're not gonna be making a cup run. The playoffs is a whole different animal. I'd say any team outside of Philadelphia could make the playoffs this year. Chicago probably too, because of. I'd say no to Chicago, but Bedard makes me want to say yes.
I mean, Bedard is gonna, yeah, but look, even when Edmonton got McDavid at first, they still sucked.
Yeah,
for a couple years.
Yeah. Oh, and then Anaheim. So really those three.
Yeah.
You got to give it time for the storylines to kick in, and then Chicago would probably win the cup in a few years.
It's funny if you told me like a year ago, hey, the Florida is gonna make it to the cup final this season, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. They were great last year. But if you told me they were gonna do it the way they did it, I would have thought you were insane. So
also been like, why are they so bad?
Yeah, exactly. Jesus.
Yeah.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. So Nylander. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with him. Austin Matthews is going to be signed very soon by the Toronto Maple Leafs. If not this summer, I'd say early in the season. There's no way this goes to next offseason.
Really hope it happens in the summer. I don't get the sense that Matthews wants to stretch this into the season at all.
I'm sure they're just like hashing out minor details, probably debating the agent and living between 1 to 2 years. Marginal differences in financials, and
yeah,
I expect Austin Matthews to come back. My guess, like I said,
yeah, it's going to be short term. It's going to be a lot of money, but yeah,
I could see 13.34 for 3 years. He wants a short deal. He's gonna get a short deal.
Of
He
course, it's
kind
gonna
of
be.
has all the leverage.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
13?
I think 13.4.
Mhm.
He likes to have his jersey number in it. He did
They
in his
all
last
do.
deal.
They all do.
And the
Mhm.
only
Ugh.
other way you can kind of get the jersey number in it and going higher is entering the 14 mils, the 14s.
Unless you're
Uh,
gonna do it with like decimal points.
yeah, but I think he wants it clean.
Oh my god, these damn players.
But I don't know, 13.4 for Matthews. I'd like that. I know that's about 700,000 more. I believe just a little over McKinnon, who's the highest paid player in the NHL. But the cap's going up.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
cap's going up. These players are gonna get more and more every year. So
you know,
yeah.
um, people are going to clown the Maple Leafs when Matthews becomes the highest paid player in the NHL in the coming
Mhm.
weeks. And it's going to be odd to see considering the tight cap bind that they're in and all the lack of success, yada yada yada. But
Mm-hmm.
Matthews has earned his money. Could he perform a little better in the playoffs? Sure. Almost anybody. You could say that almost about anybody on the team, aside from I'd say William Nylander.
Yeah.
Um,
Outside of like Nylander and Morgan Riley, probably.
and Luke Shen.
Don't remind me about Luke Shen.
Yeah. But
Or Noah Chari for that matter.
mhm.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, right? Like
Mhm.
stuff happens.
What are you gonna do? Just pray. Hey, no Dubas next year, so see what happens.
Yeah. No Dubas. Not true living.
Oh, right. We never even talked about that.
Well, it's old news at this point. Yeah, we weren't really
Doing stuff.
we weren't really doing stuff when that happened. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about it anymore, to be honest. He's gone. True Living's here. They signed Ryan Reeves to the worst contract I've ever seen. And then they signed Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi to two contracts I actually like quite a lot, even though they're only 1 year. Yeah.
I actually like the Ryan Reeves contract in the sense of that it's going to be variable in a year. That's why I don't really care. Like it's going to be variable in a year. It's slightly above the variable limit now, I believe. I don't know what the exact variable limit for an AAV is, but it's whatever.
Yeah.
You can like spend a fifth and get a team to get that. Is that good asset management? No, but he's gonna bring exactly what the Leafs wanted with him. It's not like you know what you're getting with Ryan Reeves, right?
You know what you're getting for sure. Like
the only Maple Leaf signing I wasn't a big fan of was the John Klingberg signing because it's giving me big callbacks to Tyson Berry, where you have a defenseman who's very gifted offensively, very good at running the PP1, power play one, has some of his own defensive deficiencies, as any defenseman does. But my thing is John Klingberg had a very, very poor season with Anaheim last year. He stepped it up a bit with Minnesota, saw some playoff ice time after the trade.
Yeah.
But you already have Morgan Riley for your first power play. You bring him in. He's a good second power play defenseman. He adds a bit of scoring. And the Leafs do need scoring. Don't get me wrong. The Leafs need scoring for the playoffs. But my thing is, I just don't know John Klingberg is the guy to bring in for that, especially at that cap hit, especially when you had guys who added a little bit of offense, but a lot more defense as well in Matt Dumba still on the market. Caleb Jones is still on the market too. He's a very good depth piece. And no one's picking him up.
Yeah, the Klingberg signing was surprising to me as well. I mean, the Leafs were a team last year where like they really did not get very much at all from the back end in terms of offense outside of Morgan Riley, especially like in scoring goals. Like, nobody was really doing much of that. I don't know if you remember the Leafs' the first goal I think a defenseman scored last season was from Jordy Ben. Like, I don't know if any of you remember that, but yeah, Jordy Ben scored for the Leafs this season. Yeah, in that sense, I don't mind it, but yeah, he's literally one of the worst defensive defensemen in the NHL, and his offense last year did not do enough to make up for that. He's 30 years old. It's not like it's a long-term commitment at 4.15 for 1 year. So, if he sucks at the beginning of the year, might be able to figure out their way out of it. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very interested to see how they want to use him on this team. I can't imagine he'll be on power play 2. I don't think they would have signed him if they were going to use him on power play 2.
But then you're running 2 defensemen on power play 1. That just seems weird in today's NHL.
I mean, they've taken Morgan Riley off power play 1 before. So I don't know.
It's weird. I don't know.
It is
I'm
weird.
interested to see how it's going to work out.
Mhm.
I'm trying to eye some Leafs games that are going to be cheap for this upcoming year, but
Mhm.
I'm not going to any Leafs games until second semester. I don't know about you
Yeah,
guys.
my wallet is crying still.
My wallet's crying too, but
Yeah,
I want to make sure we get to one. We should plan one.
absolutely.
Ideally out Wednesday or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck type
And
game.
like the middle of the season against Anaheim or something. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I want to see a Detroit game. Bust out my new Datsuk jersey.
Oh, Datsu. Goddamn. Wow.
I know. He's a classic though.
All right. So Alex unfortunately had to bow out for a second. Actually, no, not for a second, for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
So the last thing I think we're going to touch on is some baseball, and specifically the Shohei Ohtani situation, because I think this is something that I don't think we've seen a situation like this, not just in baseball, but in North American sports in a very, very long time. I can't even think of another example, because you have a guy here who is doing something literally no one else has done before in baseball. Like, top of his game on the mound, top of his game hitting. He currently has a 1.075 OPS. He's hitting over 300. He leads the league in home runs. And on the pitching side of things, he is the ace of the Angels staff. He strikes out almost 12 guys per 9 innings. ERA in the mid threes. He's not like the best pitcher in the league or anything, but he's like a solid 1 or 2 on any good team.
Yeah.
He's going to win the MVP this year unanimously. And if he doesn't, that would be a travesty. And he might get traded at the deadline. Now, I had this thought today. I think if Ohtani gets traded, it will be the biggest midseason trade in the history of North American sports.
Agreed.
There's nobody who's at the level of Ohtani, because what Ohtani is doing, like I said, is completely unprecedented.
He's the Babe Ruth. I'm just gonna say it. He's the Babe Ruth.
You know what? People say that, but even Babe Ruth never did this.
Yeah.
When Babe Ruth was pitching, he wasn't hitting at this level.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't until after he stopped pitching that he became, the Babe Ruth that is probably the most famous baseball player that pretty much anyone could name who Babe Ruth was and what team he played for. But with Ohtani, it's like nobody has done what he's doing, and there's honestly a chance no one will ever do what he's doing again, because it's not like there are guys coming up from the minors now that are like great two-way talents. I mean, yeah, Zach Greinke was like a decent hitter. He wasn't what Ohtani is.
No shot.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of speculation about like what teams could possibly get him. Also, what his contract is going to look like next year, because it's probably going to be the biggest contract that's ever been given out.
Like I remember when I saw Mike Trout's contract, I thought like, whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah, and even the contract like Garrett Cole got. Yeah, that's just a pitcher. George Springer. Like, it's absolutely insane. And I mean, some of the teams that have come up in the conversation, because Shohei Ohtani, when he came to North America, he said, I don't want to play on the East Coast. That's the reason why he didn't go to like the Yankees or the Mets or any of the teams there. So the West Coast seems a little more likely to me. And the most obvious team is the Dodgers. But I believe the Dodgers have said that it's probably not going to happen from their point of view.
And I'm kind of glad about that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the Dodgers, they're always going to be in on everybody. If the Mets were, I know they're on the East Coast, but if the Mets were having a good season, which they're not, they've been terrible, then I would think, yeah, why not go over the $400 million threshold in payroll? Because they already spend more money than anybody. What's stopping them from spending even more? But they're not very good, so I don't really see that happening. The Texas Rangers are an interesting conversation. Good farm system. They're more, they play in the West. They're up and coming. I've also saw someone talking about Baltimore. Again, East Coast, so probably not, but they have the best farm system in baseball. to the point
Mm.
where actually quite scared. They scare me a lot as a Blue Jays fan because they could literally go out and get anyone they want. I think they have the tools to do so.
Yeah, they've been freaking killing it.
Yeah, I mean, they are first in the East. At the time of this recording, they just beat the Rays last night. They are first in the American League East, which at the beginning of this season did not look like something that was going to happen. I thought they would challenge for the playoffs, but I did not anticipate them being this good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all just speculation. If Ohtani is going to go anywhere, it's probably going to be on the West Coast. You think like a Rangers, the Mariners, even? I don't know. The Rangers.
Trying to think.
Who knows? Maybe the
here.
Dodgers or the Giants even will change their minds. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But if I had to guess, I would say it's probably not going to happen. I think the Angels will fight to stay competitive and keep him because even the Angels owner said a few weeks ago, although he seems to have changed his mind on it, he doesn't want to be known as the owner that traded Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, the greatest player ever. I
To
don't think
me,
there's even
that when you say
conversation.
something like that, though, like, oh, I don't want to be known as that guy, that doesn't give me security. It's not like we love
Yeah.
Ohtani here. It's just saying, oh, I'm just looking for a way out.
And with the way owners act in baseball, I mean, you look at what's happened to the Oakland A's this year. You don't get the sense they care a lot about their public image.
Yeah.
So I don't think he really cares whether or not he's the owner that traded Shohei Ohtani. If it's more money in his pocket, then who really cares? All I think we can say for certain is Shohei Ohtani will not be on the Angels next year unless somehow they go on a great run, make the playoffs, and go on a run after that. But as of right now, Ohtani and Trout, for that matter, they're not going to win anything in Anaheim,
It's
at
sad.
least not in the near future. So it's
Yeah.
going to be really interesting what happens there at the deadline, if he goes anywhere, and in the offseason, what his contract is going to look like. But yeah, that's about all I have to say on that matter for Ohtani. I don't know if you had any final thoughts.
Well, quick little fun one. I
Mm.
wish he was in the home run derby. That's why I didn't watch it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
Uh,
he probably would have won it, but it was good to see Vladdy do his thing.
Yeah.
Just wish he would improve in the actual games. Although he did hit a home run yesterday against San Diego. That gave them some insurance. So that's nice.
I don't know. For me, like, I kind of don't want Ohtani to leave. You know what I mean? Like, I do want him. I would want to see him in the playoff. I would want to see him on a better team, but I just don't. I'm not a big fan of players constantly changing teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see what you mean. I mean, obviously, like he's pretty much the only reason anyone is watching the Angels. I mean, Trout's
Yes.
injured right now. He's going to be out for like a couple months.
But like,
he's
beside Trout and Ohtani, like, why else would you watch the Angels?
I'm trying to even think. I mean, I don't know. Mike Moustakas is there now. He's been really good, apparently. Yeah, that's about it. That's the only guy I can think
That's
of.
it.
But yeah. But yeah, I think we're good to about wrap it up there. I'm not usually the host, so I don't usually do the outros, but I guess I'm gonna do this one.
Go for it.
Thank you for tuning into Without Warning. I've been Ryan McMahon.
And I'm Alexander Antoniadis.
And Alex Wathy already left, so
He's gone.
yeah, he's gone. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We will see you all next time.
For sure.